Today on Light of the Word with Pastor Ray.
We as a church, we can very much think, okay, it's our role to judge and God's role to love. And God, especially this verse right here, your role is to love and let me decide what the judgment shall be. And if you can come to that, if I can come to that, God, you judge them, you deal with them as you determine. I simply need to love them. And if they will want reconciliation, I will extend forgiveness to them.
Open your heart to us, Lord, so we can know your word. We come before you, Jesus. Speak to our hearts as we discover your love for us. How wide, how deep, how far. Pour into us so we can learn to follow. One surrender at a time. You have made the way for us to know you, a path that's straight and right. By the light of the word.
In our society, people come from many different backgrounds and beliefs. Because of that, there are times when disagreement can feel like judgment. And in some cases, our responses can come from pride rather than love. But in today's message, Pastor Ray wants us to remember that it is not our place to condemn others. Instead, we are called to love people and point them to Jesus, especially toward those who have wronged us. It's our job as followers of Christ to lead a life that reflects what he teaches. Well, let's join Pastor Ray in the book of Genesis chapter 50 for today's edition of Light of the Word.
When I first got saved, I thought there was that one or two things, but then all of a sudden, I got those big things, those big things. It was like the little boy, he was walking through the living room and he was whistling and snapping his finger at the same time. And his dad says, "What are you doing, son?" He goes, "Well, I think the two hardest things in life are whistling and snapping your finger. And if I can get these two things down, the rest of life is going to be a breeze." And, we get saved and then we see these couple big things in our life and go, when I get past this and I get it, the rest of life's going to be a breeze. And you all know what your one or two things were when you first gave your life to the Lord. But then all of a sudden you get over those things. Then all of a sudden you start looking in the mirror of God's word, and you start seeing how far short you fall in selfishness or pride or love and these type of things. And all of a sudden you start seeing more and more, Lord, I need you to work here. I need you to do a work and do these type of things in my life to transform me and bring me into this place. And I look at the life of Jacob there, and his best chapters, all of his faults and failing, at the very end of his life, he's just simply leaning on Jesus. He comes to this place, it's Jesus, it's God or nothing for me. And I want to say, your best chapters, they're now. And there's an easy place for us to look and start looking at the culmination of our failures, then the culmination of God's transformation and the glory that he's done in us, and go, Lord, my best chapters of my life can be now, and you've given me unique blessing, gifting. What is it and how do you want me to use it? And I just pray, what is it that I want to see God do in 2026? I usually ask the Lord, and he usually gives me a verse somewhere that is kind of a verse that I keep coming back to throughout the year and remembering the word that he gave me. I think just a beautiful word that he gave me this week was for 2026, Revelation chapter 1, verse 19. Right, the things that you have seen, the things which are, and the things that shall be. And in that, it unfolds through the rest of the book of Revelation. It's a divine outline. Write the things that you've seen, speaking of the glorified Christ, walking in chapter 1. Write the things are, and it's God's work among the churches in chapter 2 and 3. and then write the things which will be in this prophetic picture of all the rest of the book of Revelation, all the way to the new heaven and the new earth of Revelation 21 and 22. And I said, that would be a great unfolding for a year. Spend my life, my year speaking. Let me tell you about Jesus Christ and what he did when he walked this earth, whether it's in the church, a mission field, a community, or a home. And then at the same, spend time, let me tell you what God's doing today. His Spirit's alive. His Spirit's moving in the church in America and wants to move in your hearts and your lives. And then spend the time telling people he's coming back. And there's a new heaven and a new earth. But before that, there's going to be a rapture, and there's going to be a period of tribulation. What a way to spend the 2026. And I see these and I go, man, Lord, the best chapters can still be ahead of us. It may take sacrifice for you and a willingness to say, to have my best chapter, Lord, I might have to do some dying, as we're seeing in this chapter, to the things around me and the things of my life. I was sharing this story with some of you who were in the prophecy update a couple weeks ago. But when I was in Nepal, I got the honor to teach the main service. They worship on Saturday. They work 6 days weeks. Sunday's the first day of the work week for them. But I got the honor to do a Saturday service. And a couple missionaries were passing through. They established these various types of ministries throughout Asia and that area in the Middle East, kind of under radar type stuff. And they came up after because I was there. I was the American. They were Americans. We're in Nepal. And they came up, these two missionaries from Texas, and they started to talk to me. And they started telling me about how they train people up and they place them in various ministries. Just a glorious. And this man, these two, their faith for 30 years of doing this type of ministry. But he tells me this story that just as our conversations are going, he goes, we train people, natives, and then we use them for the ministry throughout the various places there in this region of Asia and the Middle East. And he goes, so we trained, brought this young woman, a young adult now at her age, to Christ. We trained her up and we taught her the things of the Lord. She turned into this amazing light of the world. She had the zeal of the Lord and the joy of the Lord. And she was from Afghanistan. And where they were ministering, not to name the country, but the country came back and said, all Afghanis must leave our country. They can no longer stay in this country. And so her immediate directives would have been, you have to go back to Afghanistan. And if you know Afghanistan and you're a zeal of the Lord and the light of the world, you can lose your life in Afghanistan for being so outspoken. And this young adult was full on outspoken in her faith. And the missionary tells me, and he goes, so we said, it's very likely that she'll perish and die a martyr's death if she goes back to Afghanistan. So we started working to get her into the United States. We had a lot of connections and we had a lot of means to make this happen. This is a recent story, by the way. And all the things lined up that we could bring her to the United States, and she'd be a blessing and these type of things. And so she's like, sure, if that's okay, And then as things were lining up, the missionary tells me, he goes, then I said to her, I do have this great concern, is that if you come to the United States of America, that your zeal is going to go lukewarm because you'll become like so many Americans in the church and you'll just grow lukewarm in your faith. And here's this young adult. She's like 19 years old. And she said, you know what? If going to Afghanistan and dying a martyr's death is my way, I would rather go back to Afghanistan and die a martyr's death than possibly go to America and die a spiritual death into lukewarmness. And the reason I make the point of, I just got done teaching the Saturday service, and there's 150 people there, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, this girl should have been the one up here preaching. She should have came up and told the story of the sacrifice and the story she's willing to lay out for her life. And I find these amazing stories, and for us, we're not going to be, I don't think that's going to be our choice that we're going to have to make. And that's a beautiful thing. But I think there's a place for all of us that we can go, you know, my best chapters, like Jacob, can be these last chapters of my life. But I have to make the determination that they're going to be. And it may come down into a sacrifice to do just that. Well, as we move on, as we look at this chapter as it closes out in verse 15 through 17, Jacob's dead. Now here comes the boys. They start thinking maybe Joseph only was gracious to us because Dad was alive. Verse 15 through 17. When Joseph's brother saw that their father was dead, they said, perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him. So they sent messengers to Joseph saying, before your father died, he commanded, saying, I don't know if this really happened, but this is their story. Thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespasses of your brother and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now please forgive the trespass of the servant of God of your father. And here's the key. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. You know why Joseph is weeping? His heart is breaking that you could actually come and say such things to me, that you actually did not know that I fully forgave you. And that now after Dad's death, that you could somehow think that my forgiveness wasn't final. And what a picture, because all through our study, we've been looking at Joseph as a picture of Jesus Christ. And I will tell you this for all of us, myself included, if you want to break the heart of God, question that you're forgiven. Question that he has forgiven you. Because he will say, I came as the lamb, the babe of Bethlehem, and I went to the cross as the Lamb of God, so that you and I can have this relationship and this oneness together. How could you ever question my great love for you and my forgiveness for you? And so there's a place for us that we have to, whether it's with the Lord, you're forgiven. That is done. When Jesus said on the cross, it is done, it is done. Just live that. You're never going to move on to the joy of a Christian life. You're never going to live your best chapters of your life if you keep going back and wondering if you're forgiven. If that God goes, yeah, I saved you, but man, you've been a disappointment to me. We see the life of Joseph said, when I said it's done, it's done. And so 2 takeaways for you in your personal life today. When you tell someone that you've forgiven them, then you need to settle that and end that. You cannot go back in time for what you said you forgave and bring it back up. Jesus said, God tells us, as far as the east is from the west, I put your sin away. When you say that you forgive somebody, you need to be sure that you have, and you need to sit with the Lord and go, I said I gave them. I told them, I said I forgive you. That needs to be done because they can't live the rest of their life with my possible unforgiveness to come back upon them. And oh boy, you need this in your relationships, whether it's in the church, the people you work with, or in your homes, and the people that are part of your family. When you forgive, you need to let it be done. And then there's a place, and when someone forgives you, it's done. Receive it and let it be done, and just move on in the freedom that comes with it. And there's another freedom that comes with it in verse 18 and 19, as Joseph's going to say here. Then his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, "Behold, we are your servants." Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God?" You're my brothers, you're not my servants. This is one of the things that he's saying. But here is the perfect freedom that comes in this place for all of us. Speaking of forgiveness, is if you want to be totally free, Joseph's making this statement, let God be the judge. We as a church, we can very much think, okay, it's our role to judge and God's role to love. And God, especially this verse right here, your role is to love, and let me decide what the judgment shall be. And if you can come to that, if I can come to that, God, you judge them, you deal with them as you determine. I simply need to love them. And if they will want reconciliation, I will extend forgiveness to them. I mean, to be forgiven, you have to come and say, forgive me, I've sinned against you. And when you say, I forgive you, it's done. But we just leave the freedom, and we can walk in the freedom. Lord, whatever you want to do with judgment, whether they ask for forgiveness or not, that's up to you. Me, I'm just going to love them as Christ loves them. And then as verse 20 and 21, still great depths and heart of God in this. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. Now, therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Here's Joseph. He's coming and saying, you thought in this, and you saw only this, but you couldn't see what the biggest picture is. And this is where Joseph is. It's amazing the heart and the forgiveness and the way you can minister to someone when you know there's a bigger story, when there's a bigger plan. And so often we become critical and judgmental when we just know this little sliver. We don't know the full story of what God's doing. We don't know the full story of what's going on in their life. We don't even know the full story of why and what happened in our relationship with them. But then as time goes on, maybe we start seeing a bigger picture and we go, oh, wow. And this is what Joseph, oh, wow, man, now I see. I was the vessel that God chose to save a people. Not only did he save Egypt, he saved all of Canaan. And so, brothers, here's how it went. God had to get me, the vessel, down to Egypt. That's where you came in. You sold me into the slavery. God had to get me into the prison so that I can interpret the dream. That's where Potiphar's wife came in. And of course, the butler and the baker, they forgot me, but God never did. And then here would come the passing that I would interpret the dream. And now here I became the second in the land. And when we see that whole picture, and but we're never going to see the whole picture in the middle of the picture. It's at the end we go, wow, God, how did you put all these things together? But a word, a takeaway for us, for maybe your life very specifically today, the pain that you may be going through is the very pain that God needs to use to scream out to you what he wants to do in your life. And there's a place by faith that we come to and go, the plan is always greater than the pain. C.S. Lewis, he writes and he speaks of the problem with pain in his book, and he uses the correlation of Job, the life that Job lived. And we all come and we go, we would all agree we're in a spiritual war. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, principalities and power. We're in this spiritual war. We're soldiers in this battle. And then we're on a battlefield. We're in a fight together. I love how C.S. Lewis said, and he speaks of Job, that kind of changes the whole picture of it. We're not on the battlefield, Christian. We are the battlefield. There is a fight going on between the Lord and the devil wants to steal, kill, and destroy, and the Lord wants to give us life and that more abundant. And there's this place, I know from my life, and I think you do too, in my pleasure, God's just a whisper. But in my pain, I can hear God like no other time. The clarity of his voice, it's almost as if a shout coming from heaven, that it's in the pain that God has done the greatest things in my life. And here's Joseph telling this story of what you intended for evil. God had a whole plan for me. In verse 22 and 23, so Joseph dwelt in Egypt and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. We're starting to see the age drop due to the fall. Verse 23, Joseph saw Ephraim, his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. So he's got great grandchildren. The children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were also brought up on Joseph's knee. Hey, grandparents. Just a short point there. Grandparents, you have the greatest chapters of your life, because there is nothing of the impact of anyone that I believe a grandparent can make. And you got your Christmas coming up. You got your grandkids, regardless of their age, where maybe they're too big to put on your knees, maybe they're not, but you get to sit and tell stories of them, of your life. And I remember my grandfather. Oh, what a storyteller. And I am all these years later. I remember his stories of being in the World War. I remember his stories of him being a champion boxer. I remember his stories of how the place we lived in Western Pennsylvania, that he was the real estate agent who kind of shaped all those type of things. And I remember all these stories that he would tell me, because he was my grandfather, and I would listen to every story that he had, and I enjoyed all the stories that he had. And here you are. You get the same. Your grandkids, this is grandma, this is grandpa. I love hearing their stories. And so you got a Christmas coming up. You can tell them stories of, hey, I want to share a story about my life and what God has done. Or maybe pick up the Bible and read the story in Luke, verse 24. And Joseph said to his brethren, I am dying, but God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph took an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
You have made the way for us to know you, a path that's straight and right. By the light of the world.
You've been listening to Light of the Word. One of my favorite characters in the Bible is Joseph. What a man of upstanding character and perseverance. He endured many false accusations and was tested in multiple ways, but he passed with flying colors. We're not just talking about his coat of many colors. Although he received this from his father, Joseph's strength of character was far richer in color than any piece of clothing. Joseph was hated by his brothers, betrayed, and brought low, as he was sold as a slave. But throughout his life, he kept being brought low, only to be raised up into a position of authority or leadership. Have you ever considered that this might be a refining process that God has in mind for you too? Ultimately, it was through this roller coaster of situations that God used Joseph to help rescue his entire family from famine and death. Next time you're in a valley, questioning what God is doing, look to the story of Joseph, reminding yourself that God has an interesting way of lifting people up who seek to honor Him in their lives. To find out more encouraging content from the book of Genesis, you'll find it at lightoftheword.info. We come to you from Calvary Chapel of Anne Arundel County in Glen Burnie, Maryland. Join us next time for Light of the Word, illuminating the heart of God.
You have made